Management of Aarti Industries joins us now. Suyog Kotecha, CEO and Executive Director with Aarti Industries. Mr. Kotecha, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Q1 EBITDA was above estimates. Can I assume that this clearly means that you would maintain the guidance of 1400 to 1700 crore for the full year?
Well, if we step back, I know on Q1Q we've delivered growth across all the major parameters. And I think if I split the story in demand and margin, I think in demand we are seeing good recovery. So across segments, polymer, pharma, dyes and pigments, even agrochemicals, we are seeing certain green shoots in terms of demand recovery, which is also reflected in our volumes. Our Q1Q volume grew by 6%, our year-on-year volume grew by 30%. But margins, frankly, remain under pressure, and it's mostly driven by China. I think given their domestic overcapacity situation, they continue to dump products in the global markets. And for business like ours, where we have more than 60% exports, it continues to impact us. And on top of that, we have a new segment where we have decent exposure, which is energy, which has its own volatility, right? We have linked to now crude, naphtha cracks, gasoline cracks. So with all of that, I think bit premature to comment on the yearly guidance, but I think on volume front, we feel confident of delivering 20 to 30% growth. On margins, we'll have to wait for a few more months.
What is your presence in Bangladesh? I understand that's a strategic market for you. And given what's happening in terms of political unrest there, what could be the implications?
So, Nikunj, to be very frank, I think at Aarti Industries level, we have limited exposure to Bangladesh as of now. It's a relatively small percentage of our overall business portfolio. No risk that we are seeing from that exposure at this point in time.
And in US, that fear of recession which came same time last week, could that impact the future, future demand trend in US?
So that remains a concern. I think we do have significant exposure to US, but so far we have seen demand holding up, right? If I look at demand exposure to polymers, to some of the specialty chemicals, even to energy segment, I think demand from US remains robust. We haven't seen any headwind, but we continue to watch out. I think if there is a recessionary pressure in US that comes or that becomes visible in next 3 to 4 months time frame, I think we'll continue to monitor. So far, we haven't seen any pressure.
Okay, let's also get in a perspective from you as to what the outlook is now when it comes to the overall team. Given that there's the new CEO on board, the question is now what the strategy is going to be for you guys. Now that you're in the helm, can we see more professionals as well joining the management team? Is there going to be some sort of a change in the overall strategy?
I think, look, if I step back, I would say the entire leadership team already is sort of quote unquote professionalized, right? If you look at our sort of CXO teams. And I think that transition becomes complete potentially with me coming on board. From a strategy point of view, it's 8 weeks into the role, right? So I think you'll have to give me slightly more time. But broadly, I think we remain committed to deliver, the earlier guidance of 20 to 25% CAGR growth in our bottom line. And I think there are 3 specific themes we are focusing on, right? One is on time, at cost execution of all of our current expansion projects, including, what we are doing at Zone 4, including our anti-ethylation chain. That will increase new molecules in our portfolio, at the same time deepen our value chain integration. So that's one theme. The second theme is we have cutting edge R&D and technology capabilities. So how do we use that to make bets in new sunrise sectors, like circularity, electronic chemicals, battery chemicals? That remains the second theme. And this bets will allow us to get exposure to sector which have sort of tailwinds from a growth point of view for almost a decade. And third and most important, this is a unique organization which has a blend of quote unquote founders mentality coupled with a very strong values driven culture. And that has created tremendous value for shareholders, even if you take a 10 to 20 year point of view. So one of the focus is not only how to retain, but nurture that to continue to deliver 20 to 25% growth year on year will remain focused. So all of these 3 themes is what we are committed to. And we continue to look forward to the growth in the coming 3 to 5 years.
You are looking at entering into areas of battery storage. Now that is a high capex, highly competitive space. Why would you venture into something where,
Just to
yeah, yes, please.
not battery storage. I think we are a B2B and a specialty chemicals company. So in all of these aspects, right, be it circularity, electronics, or batteries, what we are looking at is the chemistries that go into these segments. We are not talking about entering into the end market itself, but it's more about intermediates and chemistries that go into these segments.
Okay. No, so you would be essentially making, when I say chemicals, or I would use the word raw material, which would be used by battery storage companies.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So,
not necessarily battery storage, even battery manufacturing companies, right?
and
So I mean,
again, for lead or for ice?
sorry.
No, this entire supply chain which you're planning to diversify in, would you be making components which are essentially used by the EV battery storage or for ICE batteries?
EV battery storage.
Okay. And who would be your nearest competitors in this?
There are multiple global multinationals present into the segments. You know, the likes of BASF is one of the leading players. There are some Japanese and Korean companies, and of course China, where there's a long list of companies present. But what we are looking at is not to do high volume commodity, right? I think within that space also there are some unique niche specialty where we have our own competitive advantages, and that's the area where we want to focus on.
If somebody is watching the show and wants to understand that, what are the markers one should use to understand which way the business trajectory is moving for Aarti Industries, what should one look at? Realizations in China, demand and supply equation in China. What are the 2-3 markers which essentially are the lead indicators?
I think first and foremost, we should continue to look at sort of demand growth because ultimately all of, we have expanded decent amount of capacity across value chains, and placement of that capacity in the global markets remains a critical factor. The second one is actual margins in China, which are linked to their capacity utilization, right? So that's the second trend to observe. And third, I would say that ultimately, what percentage of our products are getting more specialty, more value-added, more downstream, because that's an indication of, profitability and sustainability and profitability over long term.
And finally, in terms of the basic backward integration which you are doing, where is that backward integration moving eventually in terms of margin expansion?
No, so I think the two large chains, which is the NCB chain and nitrotoluene chain, I think we have expanded our capacity. NCB capacity expansion got completed. Nitrotoluene chain capacity expansion will get completed in this quarter. In fact, will get commissioned towards the end of this quarter. And I think beyond that, there is no backward integration for us because, frankly, then we go to benzene toluene where we remain a buyer in the market. So from a backward integration point of view, we feel very comfortable. That is one of the aspects which has allowed us to compete with China in the global market, despite sort of tremendous pressure on margins. But I actually think that we are in a very good space from a backward integration point of view. Now it's more about how do we go more downstream, more specialty, which allows us to bring in differentiated offering to the market where competitive intensity is also lower.
And on that note, we let you go. Thanks so much for making time and speaking with us today. Just taking.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.